Greetings, colleagues. Welcome to Fielding Graduate University's Evidence-Based Coaching in Context webinar series. Our monthly gatherings designed for coaches, coaching practitioners, scholars, students, and all those who find the art of and science of coaching intellectually engaging. My name is Elena Nicholson, and I have the privilege of serving as your Vice President of University Relations at Fielding. It's a joy to be your host today. We've curated a thought-provoking experience that we hope will inspire and challenge your thinking in all the best ways. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. Please remain muted throughout the presentation to help ensure the best listening experience for everyone. Towards the end of the event, I will share a brief survey link in the chat. For those of you requesting CEUs, please remember that full attendance and survey completion by May 23rd are required. Your certificate will be sent within 2 weeks from the Office of the Registrar at Fielding. Also, mark your calendars for our next session on June 11. Practical application of psychodramatic techniques in coaching with Anna Bobikova. You can register using the link that I will also post in chat. I would like to also introduce Ignacio Vargas, Senior Admissions Advisor at Fielding, who is also a Fielding alum from our Masters in Organizational Development and Leadership program. I'll post his bio and contact information in the chat as well. And now, it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Okokon O. Dr. Udo is a visionary academic leader, seasoned executive coach, master trainer, whose career spans organizational development, education, conflict facilitation, intercultural leadership, transformational coaching, and many, many other things. As the program director for both Evidence-Based Coaching Certificate and the Masters in Organizational Development and Leadership programs at Fielding, he brings a rare blend of scholarly rigor, practical insight, and soulful presence in everything he does. He also is the co-founder and CEO of Soul Engineering. I encourage you to follow his thoughtful reflections on LinkedIn and his blog. His weekly posts are a wellspring of wisdom and grounded inspiration. Personally, I'm continually moved by the depth of Dr. Udo's integrity and the beauty of his spirit. It's a gift to know and learn from him. Today's session is titled Mirror, Sage, Master, Unleashing Reflective Supervision for Transformational Coaching and Leadership. Please join me in welcoming the extraordinary Dr. Okokon O.
Wow. I am speechless already before we get started. Thank you so much, Elena, for the introduction. And thank you for being here, looking on the screen and noticing the names and people that are here. Some of you are regulars. So again, it's my delight. And I am also noticing that my big brother, who is in Nigeria, is here with us. So that's awesome. Thanks for being here. So I will share my screen and get going right away. The expression that came to mind this morning as I was thinking about this session was so much to do, so little time. And by that, I am implying that you should do more inquiry and reading about this art of reflective supervision. But most importantly, maybe you should consider hiring a supervisor. And I'm going to make that plea at the end of my presentation today. So I will share my PowerPoint slide and we will get going right away. So here we go. So the title again is Mirror, Sage, Master, Unleashing Reflective Supervision for Transformational Coaching and Leadership. That's what we are going to be stepping into. So a little bit about me and supervision. You know, way back when, very early in my career, I had the privilege of becoming certified in clinical supervision when I was working in the healthcare context. That experience got me connected to this art and science of supervision. And I moved away and did different things, including becoming an educator, working in a nonprofit as an executive, and other things along the way. And then just 6 years ago, I reconnected with supervision because I felt it was an essential resource to have in the context of the work I do and the career that drives me currently. And so in that process, I acquired a certificate and a diploma in supervision and have built capacity in a number of areas. In reflective supervision, which is this opportunity to work with practitioners who are coaches, clinicians, or leaders in different contexts. And I also do what is called supervision of supervision, which is supervising people who are themselves supervising other people. And the third aspect is training supervision, which is this specific art of supporting people who are in the process of preparing to be supervisors. And the last part is that I serve on the faculty of two supervisory training programs, one in the UK and one in the US currently. So you can see it is one of those waters of professional career path that I swim in regularly and get really excited about. So we are going to do a number of things today. We are going to define reflective supervision, and we will do our best to distinguish it from other supervisory approaches. Because there isn't a whole lot of time, I would invite you, if you haven't already made AI your friend, to input some of these questions in and get some like guidance on a few of the related aspects of my presentation today. So we will also understand the three core principles of reflective supervision, learn about the Leash and Patterson process of reflective supervision. We will demonstrate strategies to foster critical thinking, self-awareness, and emotional resilience. And the last one is develop awareness of the need of reflective supervision for professional growth. That's a lot. So I have to get going. So here is the definition that I want us to consider for the purpose of what we are doing today. Reflective supervision, is a process primarily used in fields such as social work, psychology, counseling, pastoral ministry, education and mental health, etc., to enhance professional growth and improve practice. So just note those two, professional growth and improve practice, because we will be digging deeper into this. It involves a collaborative, supportive relationship between a supervisor and a supervisee, where they engage in critical thinking and reflection about the supervisee's work, experiences, challenges, and emotions. And then I'm pulling in the ICF definition here so that we kind of hold that in our awareness as we explore this important topic. ICF defines it as a collaborative learning practice to continually build the capacity of the coach through reflective dialogue for the benefits of both coaches and clients. For the benefit of both coaches and clients. So here we go. There are three core principles of reflective supervision that I want to put out there very quickly as we get started. Those are reflection, collaboration, and regularity. So in the reflection piece, this is about creating space for honest, thoughtful dialogue. My way of speaking to that aspect of it is, if you are not ready to literally like rip your heart and your soul open for inquiry, investigation, reflection, there is no point hiring a supervisor. It is not a place to connive with yourself, to lie to yourself, or to pretend with yourself, or waste somebody else's time, because the commitment is for somebody to support you in doing all of the work that is needed so you can show up in the best possible version of yourself for the sake of who? For the sake of the people that you serve. So you can see there is almost a gatekeeping role in that process, which is the experience of supervision is to make sure that the people that we as professionals interact with, number one, have the best of us, and number two, are protected and are safe to be in those relationships. The second one is collaboration, which is about building a respectful, mutual learning partnership. Most of you in this space, I know already, are what is considered as lifelong learners. It's like you're waiting for the next thing, the next way to enhance your knowledge and your ability and your capacity to show up as a human being, but also to do the things that you are called and put on the planet to do. And so building this partnership in this context between yourself and a supervisor allows that to constantly evolve. I have personally been in supervision for the last 6 years. And what that means is that I meet with my own supervisor every 6 weeks for 90 minutes in the last 6 years. I have reached a point where I am anticipating it, like literally waiting for it, because I know that after every session of supervision that I come away from, I always feel that I am closer and closer to being the best version of myself for the sake of the work that I do. So that partnership for me is non-negotiable. It doesn't matter whether I have additional resources sitting there and waiting. My supervision session must be scheduled. Because of what? Because I am interacting every day in situations that can put people at risk, that can also put me at risk. So the last one is the regularity. You can use many different examples in life to speak to this. One would be like health. If I am waiting until I can no longer get out of bed for me to call my doctor, there is a problem. If I am waiting until my house starts leaking for me to know that, oh, there is maintenance need in my home, there is a problem. So this regularity ensures that I am proactively taking care of myself. And I am sure you know this in other areas of your life. The more you do the proactive thing, the less likely it is that you will have emergency or surprising situations and needs that come up, which is why I just alluded to meeting with my supervisor every 6 weeks for the last 6 years, and that is not going to change. This is the Lish and Patterson process of supervision, which I'm going to be going through a little bit in a moment, but I just want to name the components of this so you can begin to see the aspects of this reflective supervision process that goes into what you might experience as a supervisee, or what you would be holding if you become a supervisor. I know some of you in this space today are already trained and credentialed supervisors, so welcome. Your thoughts will be welcome as we go through this experience today. So in this model, which is the model I was trained in, there are these components. The first one there is hosting and containing. And you can see the hosting and containing is in red because the hosting and containing is not an item to be checked off. So when, and I'm sure you as coaches know this already, supervision doesn't happen between a certain time and a certain time, as in a 1 hour or a 90-minute session. Just like coaching doesn't happen between, say, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock and you are done. So the hosting and containing here is a commitment to the supervisee to let them know that they are constantly being held by you energetically. So when it says before the session, it means before the session. So is tracking and monitoring. So I'm going, okay, next month I will be seeing Bill again. So what are the things that I am doing in that space? I'm wondering how Bill is doing, but I'm also thinking about, are there resources that I'm noticing along the way that might benefit Bill in that time frame? So the ones in red are really important in this practice of reflective supervision. And then the actual hosting and containing happens when the client logs on. If you are meeting them on Zoom, or whether you are meeting them in person when the client shows up and comes through that door. In that hosting and containing, which I'm going to be describing more in a moment here, there is a lot more that happens. And then there is the focusing and eliciting. This is where we are trying to find out, what are we going to be doing today? What are you bringing? And as you know, in coaching, some clients might rattle off 3 or 4 different topics, and then you create the funnel, as you know, we are not going to be able to do all these topics today. So as you think about all these 4 or 5 topics, which one would you want to focus on today? And the topic might still feel really, really huge, as in, I am thinking about this kind of nagging feeling of wanting to change the world. Well, we cannot do the change the world in 90 minutes or 1 hour. So which slice of change the world do you want to engage with today? That is what the focusing and eliciting is, so we can get to a manageable size or shape of the topic that allows us to be able to dig in. That is when in this framework you go into the exploring and imagining, which is, now that we have decided on what this topic is, how are we going to get into it? And I will give you some ways of getting into it. After the exploring and imagining, which is digging in, unfolding, looking at the situation, using different resources, which are really many in the reflective supervision framework. I will detail some of them for you soon. We get into the bridging and enacting, which is, how are you going to bring what we've done here today back into your life and into your work? What are the challenges and obstacles? Who might be of support to you? What might derail you? That is what the bridging and enacting is about before we get into the reviewing and closing. So a few more things, and then we will get down to it. There is something in our framework that is called the three-legged stool. So as the client is in that stage of unfolding what that topic is, the supervisor is using the three-legged stool to determine, is this likely a normative topic? Is it a formative topic? Or is it a restorative topic. Why is that important? Because just like the builder determines whether the issue they're dealing with is going to need a bulldozer, a hammer, a screwdriver, or a drill, the supervisor is trying to see where is this pointing us and what possible array of resources are going to be helpful in our engaging this topic today. And as you can see, for the normative one, it is about what? Looking at issues of best practice and ethical standards. So there is an advocacy as well as a gatekeeping role in that space. Am I fit or right for service? Are there things that I need to address right now? Otherwise, I might be in trouble tomorrow. And what comes to mind for you? Things like boundaries, things like ethical standards. Am I holding on to those? Am I holding myself accountable enough? Or am I close to being in trouble? So for example, the topic somebody's bringing could be, I am noticing that my attraction or my closeness or my identification with this particular supervisee is getting in the way of my supervision. And so in supervision over here, in the here and now, we are looking at the there and then and seeing what needs to happen so that boundaries are not violated. So in the formative, we are getting into what? It is more in the professional growth and development space. The issue here or the need here is more in that domain. And then in the restorative, it is in the psychological well-being of the supervisee. So those are the three-legged stool. So I'm always going, okay, what are we working with here? I told you in reflective supervision, there's so many methods and resources that are available to us in that exploring and imagining phase. Some of you in the space who are supervisors are familiar with the seven-eyed model of supervision by Showett and Hawkins and Showett. You are. That is something that is used in that exploring and imagining phase to find out what's going on in the relationship, in the dynamics, and how to unfold it. There is what we call projective methods. Projective methods are methods that we use in supervision that allows you to see what is working or what is at play from a distance. So we have things like small world. If you have ever had play or sand therapy, you would know that there are objects that you put in the sandbox that represent different characters and players that the situation that you are bringing reflect. And so you can move those and interact with them in a way that allows you to engage the experience that you actually had in the context of the question that you brought. There are times that you might use cards. So I had my supervision 2 days ago, and we got into the three-legged stool and we determined what we were going to do. And the supervisor said, so where would you want to go? I said, I do not want to do small world. I do not want to do chair work. I do not want to do sculpting. I will do cards today. And she said, do you have a pack of cards in your office right now? And I looked around and I said, I don't like any of this. And in that moment, she said to me, look behind you. And I looked and she said, you've got a lot of cards there. So would that serve a purpose today? And I have had these photos sitting here since COVID. I never thought of them as a resource in that context. And I said, wow, yeah, I want to work with those. I picked 3 of these photos And I cannot begin to tell you how transformative the experience was working with 3 of the images behind me to step into the issue and the question that I was bringing to my supervision on that day. It illuminated the topic and gave me depth and width and breadth. And at the end of it, I started looking at these photos in a very different way. So I found my deck of cards right here. So there are all these methods that I used. And when these methods are used, they come more from the psychodrama perspective, which is that you are staging something. And so this is like a real-time stage that is being set for the purpose of making meaning of the topic that is brought to us. And so when you are done with the staging, there is something in reflective supervision called de-rolling, where you now have to go, you know what? Those 3 photos that I brought, thank you for being a resource for me today. I am releasing you back to your role, which is hanging on the wall. And then I return back to the supervision to apply the insights that I gained from the experiences that I had in those different methods that we have here. So I'm going to just pull this up for you to see. The 7-eyed model here is one of those resources that I used, again, in the exploring and imagining phase to make sense of the topic. I didn't want to make this fancy, and I decided to sketch it by hand. This is how the Leach and Patterson model that I was walking you through looks like in practice. The short form that we reference this by is GFT, which stands for Greenwich Foot Tunnel. If you've ever been to London and have walked down the Greenwich Foot Tunnel, you will know what I'm talking about, but it looks something like this. So if you don't know about the Greenwich Foot Tunnel, it is beneath the River Thames, which is on the east side of London. And the tunnel allows you to connect 2 places, with one which is Greenwich on the south bank of the river with the north. And on the north is Millwall, which is also known as Island Gardens. And so you just walk down. So what it illustrates here, if you see on the red where I'm sort of moving my cursor, you walk down the stairs and you go right under, and then voila, you are on the other side of the river. So because my training was rooted in London, in Cambridge to be specific, this method illustrates the meeting point. Remember what I talked about here? Hosting and containing. The supervisee shows up and meets with you. And in the going down the stairs, we are doing what? We are doing the focusing and eliciting, and then getting into exploring and imagining, and the bridging and enacting, which is going back up on the other side. So I'm going to pause right now, and I'm going to invite you to do something. One is, have you had supervision before? Just respond in chat, yes or no. And the second part is, given what I have shared with you right now, what is evoked in you? It could be thoughts, comments, questions. So I will allow a minute for you to drop in to the chat. And Ignacio and Elena, you can help me with that. Yeah.
I see a lot of yeses, but Dr. Mohammed Ahmed is asked if there's a visual. And what we're saying is that there is a visual, what you're talking about, he may need to adjust his settings or make sure that he's looking at the screen.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm seeing lots of yeses, also some no's, not yet, not formally.
Okay.
Somebody commented, Margaret said that she likes the three-legged stool. I think there is importance between managing formative and restorative. Three-legged stool also interesting to me. Supervision, yes, evokes greater curiosity.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your comments and for dropping those in. For those of you that said you have never had supervision, I believe you are referring to reflective supervision, but at different points in our adult lives, on one job or another, or while we were students and were in athletics or sports in one form or another, we had some form of supervision. And some of the forms of supervision that we have had are not the type that reflective supervision is referring to. It is not about the person that looks over your shoulder and tells you what is wrong and can't wait to catch you doing the wrong things. That is not the supervision that we are talking about today. But those supervisors exist. And in their minds, that is what supervision is about. It is about telling you what to do, catching you when you are wrong, and maybe punishing you when you do the wrong things. And that is part of why a lot of us have this image of supervision that doesn't serve us in terms of the development that we are talking about today. When it is done right, it speaks to the things that I talked about at the beginning. It is about fitness. Fitness for what? Fitness for service, fitness for the role, fitness for your profession, fitness for your career. And that fitness is for the sake of the people that we serve. I was going slow there because I want you to see that this is about the what you do and the who you are in that professional context or setting. It is about the safety of your clients and supervisees and direct reports and people that work on the team with you. I say this because we do know I have had colleagues whose licenses to practice as doctors, as lawyers, as pastors were revoked because a point came that the ethical committee or boards of their professions deemed them unfit to keep practicing in the profession. So how does supervision come in? Supervision, when done right, when utilized effectively, actually keeps enhancing your effectiveness, resourcing you in your development, and preventing the endpoint that I just referenced moments ago. It does. And that is why it is really important that we begin to understand that for some of us, most of the time, we are actually accidents waiting to happen. I would hope that many of us have, and if you haven't, that you actually look up a framework that is called Johari window. And the reason I bring that up is within the framework of the Johari window, which is a big window divided into four, one of those windows is what? That you're blind. that you can't see. So there are aspects of who you are and how you show up in the world that you yourself cannot see. And so you actually rely on friends or colleagues or coaches or therapists or supervisors to help you understand yourself in that context. So that's part of what we are talking about here today. So because supervision is not just something we talk about, but something we experience, I want to give you a short experience of supervision. So here is what I want to do. Extend an invitation to you to come up with a supervision topic. If you are kind of a little afraid or nervous right now, you are not going to be sharing your topic with anyone else. So you are going to be working with your topic on your own. So this can be something at work or in your life. It could be, this is not true in my own life, but I'm going to use it as an example. It could be a brother that I can't stand, or every time I am with my brother, I come away feeling like something is wrong with me, or there is something else I could be doing. That could be a topic. It could be somebody on my team that I have difficulties with. We never quite align, and there's always this tension when we meet, and I want to take a look at that. So I'll pause and give you another 5 seconds. Come up with a topic. And after you've come up with a topic, find a blank sheet of paper, get some pencils or markers or whatever you have around you, a pen, that would do. The next thing is divide up that sheet of paper into 6 parts. However you want to do that, 6 parts. It can be circles, boxes, whatever you want. And after you have divided up that sheet of paper into 6 parts, I want you to write the numbers in each of the box from 1 to 6. So I'm assuming that you have come up with a topic. What do you want to get supervision on? And that you have your paper ready, divided up into 6 parts, numbered from 1 to 6. Good so far? All right. So we are going to begin, and I want you to do number 1. The number 1 is, what is the situation or problem? And what I want you to do is do as little writing as possible. If you can sketch, if you can draw, if you can paint, like illustrate it in a different way and use as little writing as possible as we go through this activity. So what is the situation or problem? Draw an image. If it were in a one-on-one situation, we would be going through this at a different pace, and I would be working with one individual, but here we are. So I'm going to be assuming as I transition us from one stage to another. So I assume that you are done with box number 1, which is the situation or problem. And now we go to 2. So if you ask yourself, what is my aim? What do I want out of this? What outcomes am I hoping I get given the topic that I am considering today? What would that be in box number 2? And in this moment, you can put a pause on that, and we are moving to number 3, which is what potential or actual obstacles are in the way of achieving this, of having a better outcome with my brother or my colleague or team member? That's number 3. What potential or actual obstacles are in the way of achieving this? And we are moving to number 4. So you can again push the pause button on number 3 and move to number 4. So now you have brought up the topic and you've done 2 and 3, and number 4 is saying and asking you, how do you feel right now? How are you feeling about this topic and the consideration you've put in up to this moment? What's coming up for you? Again, a pause on that. And we are on to number 5. So for number 5, we are taking a step back. What else is in play in this situation that you haven't factored or represented yet? So you're taking a step back and reconsidering and looking at this situation all over. What haven't you taken into consideration or factored in? Again, a pause. And the last one is, given what you have done in the first box, second, third, fourth, fifth boxes, where are you now? Depending on how far you've come, what are your first steps? What is your question now? Maybe the topic has shifted differently. Capture that. And let's return from that exploration. I have a few questions that I want you to consider, and you can write those down, and it could be for a later time or after this session, because we want to keep going here to get to the end of our presentation. And those questions are, what is most significant in what you have put on the page? What is most significant in what you've put on the page? The second question is, where is the possibility in all of this? Where is the possibility in all of this? The third one is, what are the risks? What are the risks? And the final one is, what have you learned about this situation, or in this case, supervisory topic that you brought? So if we were doing the model that we talked about, what we just brought up, along with the methods that I introduced earlier, would be happening on this bottom side of the journey in this tunnel called exploring and imagining of the topic that you just brought. So that is one framework that can be used here. I said the 7 eyes could be used here, sculpting, cards, other formats that allow you to use your body either in an embodied way or in a projected way is what we just did right now. And so I am going to wrap up here real quickly that there are benefits of supervision to coaches and leaders that I want to capture here. One is enhanced self-awareness, improved professional skills, support for emotional processing, increased client outcomes. I kept hammering on that one because it is all for the sake of the people that we work with. Those of you who are familiar with the oath that doctors take that is called the Hippocratic oath, it has to do with what? Do no harm. So strengthening relationships, ethical consideration, collaboration and support, inclusive excellence, and professional development. We do not have time to exhaust each of these, but when you look at the video recording, you can research or investigate each one of these outcomes and benefits. And here is my final word to all of us on the screen before I open up for questions or address comments that came up in chat. Every coach, leader, or professional who wants to take that career, professional calling to a higher level of effectiveness and accountability should consider engaging the services of a trained and credentialed reflective coach so that they can be in the more preventative mode than the reactive mode or trying to put out fire that has already threatened to consume them and professions and career. And with that said, I will pause and see what questions, comments, reflections that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Udo. While people are considering questions, this has been such a powerful presentation. I think everybody needs to take a moment to process their experience. And while they're doing it, I put in chat May 23rd. If you need to, if you want to receive your continued education unit, you need to do it by May 23rd, and the link is in the chat. I will also post the event about June 11. Caroline, our admissions advisor, has posted it already, but I'll repost it for everyone to have fresh eyes on it. And if you have any questions, I think if you don't want to put it in chat, you can unmute yourselves and just ask. Oh, and then I get a note saying, I just tried to access the link and it seems to be inactive.
Which
Dr. Udo. The survey link, the survey link.
The survey link worked for me.
It worked. Okay, some people had it worked. If it doesn't work for you, you're welcome to email Dr. Udo. I'll put his email in the chat. How about that? It looks like people have had it. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Okay, the other comment I see from Dr. Peggy is that she did feel the shift between frames 5 and 6.
Say that again. She did what?
She felt a shift between frames 5 and 6 in your presentation.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yes, my topic started off with self-care, but then just before you said you may feel a shift, I felt it at that point, that it went totally different. And maybe that was more of a deeper meaning, maybe that's the topic that I should have led with, but maybe I went away from it thinking that I should go somewhere, choose another topic. I don't know how you feel about that. Was I actually, when I felt that shift, I'm thinking that the frame 6 may have been the frame I should have led with, the topic I should have led with. So maybe there's something deeper there.
Thanks for the observation. And those of you in this space who are coaches do know, as much as supervisors do, that there are times where right in the middle of the coaching, you observe, it looks like we're now talking about topic B. So did you notice that? And if they did, do they want to transition to this topic? Because the process is unfolding and there is a lot going on in the client or in the supervisee that it has evolved from point A to now point B. So what you are describing right now is not uncommon, but the tracking and monitoring that happens in reflective supervision has you noticing and just going, I'm noticing right now that we're talking about this other thing or this angle of this topic so that we can be tracking and moving in the right direction. So you are absolutely right. It does transform. That's what the process itself is doing right there. Other comments or questions or reflections?
I see a lot of appreciation for your presentation, guidance, generosity, the 6 steps that brought clarity. I don't see any questions. Follow-up questions. Lots of thank yous.
I'd like to ask a question if that's okay.
Oh, please, Steve.
Does supervision, well, I know I did the 6 quadrant thing. I really liked that. I liked how it organized my thoughts. I love the visual component to that. And during supervision, is it focused on challenges that I'm having as a coach with my clients? And or is it focused on topics that are outside of that, things that I'm dealing with that might be, more personal related? So when you're in supervision mode, where do you find yourself spending the most time? Should it be on my coaching practice or should it be on personal topics? Maybe this is clear to others, but.
Great question. So it depends. When I told you about my own journey with supervision, if it is reflective supervision and you're just coaching a practitioner, they can go in any number of directions. So when I go to my supervisor, I bring my supervision topics that are coming out of the context of my work because that's where I need the help most. So you get to point it based on what it is that you are encountering. So when I work with leaders in the organization, they're going to bring challenges that are coming out of the organizations or their personal challenges. It could be life challenges, like work-life balance is my topic today, and so that, so you get to determine in partnership with the supervisor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a question from Diane, and I think it may be similar, but I'll ask it. Does the supervision work well in learning around contracting with the client?
Of course it does. Yeah, in my training program, they actually called it covenanting.
Okay.
You know, yeah, it's like you have this alliance of a relationship and a journey that will hopefully be going on for a while, you know. So typically 6 sessions is the minimum
Mhm.
of supervision that is recommended so that you can begin to see, like changes in whatever the direction is that you contracted on. And as you know, in coaching, you can re-covenant or redesign the alliance. So you might go, this is what I want to focus on. And 2 sessions in, you go, you know what? I want to expand on that, or I want to change the trajectory of what it was. So that is all possible. And like this morning, I re-covenanted with somebody because the direction and pathway had changed from where we started. So we needed to be clear about what we are now focusing on. Dan, did that answer your question?
I think in part it did. And
Mhm.
I guess the other part is that when I've had coaching supervision, it's been what's going on for me in the middle of coaching a client, and my
Mhm.
coach supervisor is really, questioning and helping facilitate my own self-awareness around that.
Mhm.
And I just am thinking about, what if the initial contract I set with a client isn't really kind of capturing what's needed? And I understand that you can always recontract, but would it be an effective, what could a coach supervisor be helpful to me as coach in figuring out how I need to sort of grow in my covenanting or contracting? And what could that, for example, look like?
The answer is yes. But even in the being of help to you, there is this sense to which supervision is different, excuse me, from mentoring, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so tempting to want to dive in there and fix it and direct it and tell. And yet it has to be sourced from the supervisee. You have to draw it out and help them find it, which is where the different methods that I told you about really come into play in helping them evolve and finding new strategies and solutions. So, for example, in the small world, you might discover that the object that you put in to represent your colleague that you were interacting with, or the client that you are working with, shows up in a different way and gives you access to information you didn't know before. And so all of these approaches can go beyond the limits of your own knowledge or insights in the moment.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Udo, we're at the top of the hour, but there's a couple more questions in the chat. How would you like to handle that?
Maybe pick one, and then
One.
we will say
Okay.
goodbye.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hard. Well, I'll just follow the order of the questions received. It's from Dr. Amar. I was not familiar with reflective supervision as I am with reflective coaching. Are these mutually exclusive or intentionally directed?
Great questions. It wasn't just one question. So coaching and supervision are not the same. The part that I hope you did not miss in what I said about supervision is more about what you do and your role. It is focusing on keeping you grounded in the role of whatever it is. Your role as a coach or a supervisor is what they're looking at. That practice. So it's after your practice. In coaching, as you know, it can be any number of topics or issues that are bringing you to coaching, any number of things. And so the word that is common in those two is you are reflecting on something. But what are you reflecting on? In supervision is really, I am interested in your leadership or in your coaching or in your counseling or in your medical practice. That is the contract that we have is to make sure that you fulfill those things that I talked about, the well-being and the advocacy aspects of what that was. So what I would suggest is if you have follow-up questions, you can put them in chat because we will download those and I will, excuse me, and I will follow up with you individually. But I want to thank you for being here today and being part of the conversation. And I hope that you consider having a supervisor on your team. I do, and I also have a coach on my team. And from time to time, I have other team members. One of them is a spiritual director, and the other one, as I have need for it, is a therapist. So for us to show up in the world, in the work that we do, we need all the help that we can get. So thanks again, all the best, and we hope we see you at our June edition.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
friends and colleagues.